Hello everyone, I am Casualty. Today we'll be making another League of Legends character in Dungeons & Dragons. I put it to a vote and it was a tie between Mordekaiser and Azir. I've already done Azir, so now I'll be moving on to Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser is my main in the top lane and I really enjoy his lore and aesthetic, but we have a lot of lore to get through. So I'll get out of the way early. If you enjoy the videos I create like this one, consider subscribing and dropping a like. Then leave a comment below telling me what character you'd like me to make next. And like I said, we have a lot of lore to get through, and luckily Mordekaiser doesn't have a ton of lore, but as usual I will summarize as best I can. So without further ado, before Mordekaiser became Mordekaiser, he was known as San Uzal. In a previous life, San Uzal rampaged across the northern Wirelands, driven by a dark faith. He crushed every tribe and set them in his path, forging an empire out of blood and death. As his mortal life neared its end, he took satisfaction in knowing that he earned a seat in the God's table and the glorious Hall of Bones for all eternity. The Hall of Bones is a comparable place to Valhalla. Yet, when he died, he found no halls or glory waiting for him. Instead, he stood in an empty, vast, grey wasteland surrounded by fog and discordant whispers of other lost souls drifting by. Anger consumed San Uzal. Had his faith been false? Was his domination of the world simply not enough to grant him the immortality he craved? Surely this could not be all there was. Yet, it seemed there was no end to it. He watched as the lesser spirits slowly faded in the fog, unmade and lost to time. He refused to fade. His will, tempered by rage and torment, held him together. Over time, he learned how to understand these whispers all around him, and learned this profane tongue unspoken by the living known as Akhnun. Slowly, a plan began to form in what was left of his mind. He began to whisper temptations across the veil between realms, promising strength to any who would listen. Sure enough, the day came when a coven of sorcerers resolved to bring him back from the dead. Lacking any flesh or bone, however, he spurred them to make him stronger than any mortal. Binding his soul in the dark metal plates wrought in the likeness of his old armor, and so he rose, a hulking revenant of iron and hate. The power-hungry sorcerers hoped to use him as a weapon in their wars. San Uzal slayed them where they stood, their weapons and magic useless against him. In desperation, they screamed his name to bind him, but San Uzal was no more. With a rumble, he spoke his name in Akhnun, Mordekaiser.
All shall serve the true Lord of the living and the dead.
Thus began his second conquest of the mortal realm. Now an ironclad revenant, his ambitions were great, and from the dissipating souls of the sorcerers he slayed, he forged a weapon fit for an emperor. A brutal mace that he named Nightfall. He then seized control of the armory that the sorcerers raised. To his foes, it seemed he only cared for massacre and destruction, but there was far more to his plan than they knew. He raised the immortal bastion at the center of his empire. Most assumed it was a seat of power, but others became to know the secrets it held. Mordekaiser hungered for all the forbidden knowledge of the spirits and death and a true understanding of the realm, or even realms beyond. The Iron Revenant was soon brought low by an alliance of noxious tribes and betrayal from within his own circle. He knew them by the alias the Black Rose, and they managed to sever the anchors of his soul from his armor, and then they sealed the iron shell housing him in a secret location. There, once again in the empty wasteland, all who died under his latest escape were there. Waiting, perverted by dark sorcery from his mace, he slayed them with, their souls could not fade. The strongest would become his devout and eternal army bound to his will to serve, but even the weak had their purpose. From the subtle matter binding the souls, he would forge a new empire in the land of the dead, using them as the building blocks and mortar of his afterworld. Centuries have passed from Runeterra, and a new emperor named Noxus stands where his empire once did. Mordekaiser's name is still whispered in fear and awe by those who studied history, and remembered kindly by a few who knew him. For them, the greatest terror would be for him to find a way to return on his own permanently. Many hope he never returns to the land of living, for they know of no way to stop him if this happens. Mordekaiser's lore is pretty metal as fuck, ain't it? But I think we have plenty to work with here. A rule I'm going to set for myself is that Mordekaiser needs to have Nightfall, which is his huge mace, and he needs to be able to send people to Brazil, also known as the Realm of Death, at some point, but with that out of the way, for a background, there's not really a warlord background, but the best thing that fits is a soldier, and maybe you can work with your DM to fit more to a warlord, and with their campaign setting rather than a soldier, but this one line from soldier background fit well, and it says, "War has been your life for as long as you care to remember," and that line alone sold me on this background, because it fit Mordekaiser pretty well. And with it, you get the military rank feature, which says you have a military rank from your career as a soldier. Soldiers loyal to your former military organization still recognize your authority and influence, and they defer to you if they are of lower rank. You can invoke your military rank to exert influence over other soldiers or requisition simple equipment or horses for temporary use. You can also usually gain access to friendly military encampments and fortresses where your rank is recognized. So if by some chance Mordekaiser happens upon his military buddies, maybe they can give him special privileges. Now for our race, many things could fit here. You could have him as he was before he died and make him a very human. You could have him as the Reborn lineage. Or you can do what I'm going to do and take the Warforged race. For all intents and purposes, Warforged are pretty much sentient suits of armor. They're like they're sort of like sentient robots. With the Warforged race, we get Constructive Resilience, which gives us advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. And we have resistance to poison damage. We don't need to drink, eat, or breathe. We are immune to disease. And we don't need to sleep, and magic cannot put us to sleep. Instead of sleeping, we get Centuries of Rest, which says when you take a long rest, you must spend 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state rather than sleeping. In this state, you appear inert, but it does not render you unconscious, and you can see and hear as you normally can. So basically we just power down for 6 hours to get a long rest. We also get integrated protection as well, which says we gain a +1 to our armor class. We can only don armor with which we have proficiency, and to do so we need to incorporate it into our body, which takes place over the course of an hour and takes the same amount of time to remove it. You can short rest while this is taking place, however, and while you live, the armor you're wearing cannot be removed against your will. The process of integrating armor does not need to be done with a shield. You just hold the shield like normal. We also get a proficiency with a skill, a tool, and one other language of our choice. So pick your favorites, but I'm gonna grab Intimidation for our skill because I think it fits well. And finally, with Warforged, we get a +2 to Constitution and a +1 to one other. But with the optional feature, we can instead choose both those stat bonuses instead of being forced to take the +2 to Constitution. And that's what I'm gonna do. So for our ability scores, we're taking a 14 to Strength, a 12 to Dex, a 14 to Constitution, an 8 to Intelligence, an 8 to Wisdom, and a 15 to Charisma. Mordekaiser talked his way into being brought back to life, so I feel that kind of fits, and he didn't really study much or even see the betrayal coming, so having it and Wisdom be our kind of dump stats fits thematically, I think. For our +2, we're going to be putting it into Strength, and our +1 will be added to our Charisma, giving us a 16 Strength and a 16 Charisma. Finally, for our starting class, he was a Warlord, and he had a lot of martial prowess, so it feels fitting to start him as a fighter. We have gone over fighter many times in these videos so far, so I'll try to be brief. As a fighter level 1, we get a D10 hit dice. We also get a pick of fighting style, and we're going to be picking up Great Weapon Fighting, which says, when you roll a 1 or 2 on the damage dice for an attack you make with a melee weapon you're wielding with 2 hands, you can re-roll the die, and must use a new roll even if it's a 1 or 2. To do so, the weapon must have a 2-handed or versatile property to gain this benefit. We also get Second Wind, allowing us to use a bonus action to heal ourselves, rolling a d10 and adding our fighter level. And we can use this once and must take a short rest to use it again. For your starting equipment, I would highly recommend that you get yourself a maul and rename it Nightfall. Mordekaiser is obviously using plate mail, but if you can't make the charisma check on your DM to give you a 1500 gold item at the start of the game, pick up some chainmail and then whatever else you would like or need from there. For the magical items that you'll be working to earn during the course of your campaign, it's going to be pretty simple. You should try and go for a maul +3. And for the armor, I'd like to grab a plate +3. Pretty simple options up here, but they added the build, and they aren't needed to make it work, so no worries if you can't get them. For level 2, we would be fighter level 2. We get our action surge here, letting us take one more action on our turn. When you do so, you must finish a short or long rest to do so again. At level 3, we are fighter level 3, and we get our fighter subclass here, and we're grabbing Rune Knight. I can imagine that the iron armor housing Mordekaiser had all these kinds of arcane runes inscribed on it, and the fact Mordekaiser was huge while inside this suit. In the main splash art, he towers over a person that tries to hit him with a sword, and Rune Knight also helps out in this aspect because you get much larger with it. So with Rune Knight, we get the Rune Carver feature, which lets us use magic runes to enhance our gear. When we finish a long rest, you can touch a number of objects equal to the number of runes you know, and inscribe a different rune on each of the objects, and an object can only have one rune at a time. We learn 2 runes of our choice at this level. We're picking up the Frost rune, which says, this rune's magic evokes the might of those who survive in the winter wilderness, such as frost giants. While wearing or carrying objects described with this rune, you have advantage on animal handling checks and charisma intimidation checks. In addition, you can invoke the rune as a bonus action to increase your sturdiness. For 10 minutes, you gain a +2 to all ability checks and saving throws that use strength or constitution. Once you invoke this rune, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. So, it says all ability checks and saving throws that use strength or constitution. Now, for constitution, that will help us later on for our concentration checks, and you'll see why later. You also get the Stone rune, which says, this rune's magic channels the judiciousness associated with stone giants while wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune. You have advantage on insight checks, and you have a dark vision out to a range of 120 feet. In addition, when a creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you can use reaction to invoke the rune and forces the creature to make a wisdom saving throw. Unless the save succeeds, the creature is charmed by you for 1 minute. While charmed in this way, the creature has a speed of 0 and is incapacitated, descending it into a dreamy stupor. The creature repeats the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on success. And once you invoke this rune, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. And the main thing I went here for is Giant's Might, which says, as a bonus action, you magically gain the following benefits which last for a minute. If you are smaller than large, you become large, along with anything you're wearing. If you lack the remedy to become large, your size doesn't change. You also get advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. And finally, on each of your turns, one of your attacks with a weapon or unarmed strike can deal an extra 1d6 to the target on hit. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and regain all uses of it when you finish a short rest. This feature gives us some nice bonuses, but also fits in that hulking suit of armor thematic Mordekaiser has going for him, as you can see behind me. At fighter level 4, we get an ability score improvement, and here we get a feat, and we're grabbing Great Weapon Master, which says, on our turn when we score a critical hit with a melee weapon or reduce a creature's hit points to 0 with 1, you can make 1 melee weapon attack as a bonus action, and before you make a melee attack with a heavy weapon you're proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to the attack roll, and if it hits, you can add a 10 to the damage roll. So this is where we're going to get our big bonk for Nightfall. Now finally we move into level 5, and here's the point that I think Mordekaiser would be starting to gain an understanding of the arcane and death itself, so we're going to be taking Warlock levels here. And as a level 1 Warlock, we have a D8 hit dice. Your spellcasting modifier is Charisma. We also get our subclass choice here, or our other worldly patron. Multiple subclasses can fit here, but I'm going to be picking up Hexblade Warlock, which gives us a few things. 1 being an expanded spell list to help accommodate our melee casting playstyle. 2 being Hexblade's Curse, which with a bonus action allows us to choose a target we can see within 30 feet. The target is then cursed for a minute, and the curse ends early if the target dies, or you die, or if you become incapacitated. But until the curse ends, you gain the following benefits. You gain a bonus to damage rolls against the target, and these bonuses equal to your proficiency bonus. Any attack rolls made against the cursed target counts as a critical if you roll a 19 or 20 on the d20. And if the cursed target dies, you regain hit points equal to your warlock level plus your charisma modifier. You cannot use this feature again until you finish a short or long rest. And last but not least, we get Hex Warrior, which lets us channel our will through a weapon when we finish a long rest. We can touch one weapon that we're proficient with. When you attack with that weapon, you can use your charisma modifier instead of your strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls. The weapon you choose can have the two-handed property. Now this changes later on when we pick up the Pact of the Blade feature, which is what we're doing when we reach that point. But before we move on to the level, we also gain spells here. We're going to pick up Eldritch Blast, Mage Hand, and Shield. For any other options, pick your favorites. Shield here, because it fits the W thematic and the shield he gains from that. You don't get the option of this spell if you don't pick up Hexblade Warlock, by the way. Mage Hand, you could argue, fits within the thematic of his E and using it to pull things close to him. Eldritch Blast here is just to give us functionality for a number of things that fit the build of the thematic, with invocations later on. And also gives us damage as well, but that's just a nice bonus, and since we're a combined level of 5, our Eldritch Blast fires 2 beams at this level, and all your spell slots will come back on a short rest. At level 6, we will be a Warlock level 2, and here we get invocations I was talking about, and get to pick 2 of them currently at this level. So we're going to be picking up Grasp of Hadar, which says once per turn, when you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast, you can move that creature in a straight line 10 feet closer to you. This essentially functions as Mordekaiser's E from League of Legends, letting you pull someone closer to you. The second option here, you could take many things such as Repelling Blast, which lets you do the opposite and push someone 10 feet away, which with Mordekaiser's E you can do if you place it correctly. And it also doesn't have a limit of once per turn, so at higher levels when your Eldritch Blast gets more beams, you can hit someone with multiple beams and push them 10 feet multiple times. But for our purposes, I think I'm going to pick up Agonizing Blast, which lets us add our charisma modifier to the damage we deal with our Eldritch Blast. At level 7, we are Warlock level 3, and we get a Pact boon. And here we're resolving that problem I talked about earlier by picking up Pact of the Blade, which lets us use our action to create a Pact weapon in our empty hand. And you can choose that from each time you create it. You're proficient with it while you wield it, and it counts as a magical weapon for overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. You can also transform a magic weapon into your Pact weapon by performing a ritual while holding it. It takes an hour, and it can be done over the period of a short rest. This does not work on sentient weapons or artifact weapons. And this now lets us use our Maul, or Nightfall as we call it, as both our Pact and our Hex weapon. So we now get that charisma bonus on our attacks and to damage. But either way, at level 7, let's take a quick look at what we can do. We're going to assume best case scenario here. So with Nightfall, you currently have a +6 to hit and a +3 to damage. But if you were to use Great Weapon Master Feat, you reduce that down to a +1 to hit, and if you hit, it would then deal 2d6 plus 13 damage. But you can also Action Surge and attack again to repeat it. So on our turn, we would begin by activating Giant's Might with our bonus action. We become larger now, deal an extra d6 on hit once per turn. We can attack that turn for some damage, but this scales up because next turn with our bonus action we can then place Hexblade's Curse on our target, which costs our bonus action but doesn't require concentration. We would then attack and use Great Weapon Master. On a hit we do a 2d6 plus 13 for the Maul and Great Weapon Master. Then we also get our 1d6 from Giant's Might, and then we also get +3 added since our curse is active on that target, giving us a possible damage in one hit of 34, but we can also Action Surge and attack like this again, giving us a possible damage of 68. We also have an AC of 17 at this level. If we need, we can also burn the use of our shield spell on our reaction to bump that up to a 22 until the start of our next turn. So we're a good mix of tankiness and damage. We have some setup, but that's going to be the theme of this build going on. We're pretty bonus action reliant to start with, but once we get going, we can bring the pain once we've gotten it out of the way. Moving on to level 8, we'll be a Warlock level 4, and we get an ability score improvement where we're going to be bumping our charisma up by 2, giving us a total of 18, making our Nightfall and Eldritch Blast hit much harder. At level 9, we're a Warlock level 5, and we get another Eldritch Invocation, and we're going to be grabbing Thirsting Blade, which lets us make 2 attacks with our Pact weapon now, instead of 1, when we take the attack action. And this is why I'm taking another level on Fighter, because we can just get the extra attack functionality from this invocation. So now you can make a whopping 4 attacks with Nightfall on your turn when you use Action Surge. We also get 3rd level spells here, and I'm picking up Spirit Shroud, which is going to basically function as Mordekaiser's passive from League of Legends. And it says, you call forth spirits of the dead which flit around you for the spell's duration. The spirits are intangible and invulnerable. Until the spell ends, any attack you make deals an extra d8 damage when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you. The damage is radiant, necrotic, or cold, your choice when you cast a spell. Any creature that takes this damage can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. In addition, any creature of your choice that you can see that starts its turn within 10 feet of you has its speed reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. For any other spells, pick your favorites because this spell is really the only thing that we really want for this build. This spell basically gives you a Rylai's Crystal Scepter and lets you choose one creature to slow them by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. You're becoming a menacing duelist now, so now we can add this to our setup. Level 10, we're a Warlock level 6, and we get the Accursed Spectre feature, which says, starting at level 6, you can curse the soul of a person you slay, temporarily binding it to your service when you slay a humanoid, and it has to be a humanoid. You can cause its spirit to rise from its corpse as a spectre, the statistics for which are in the monster manual. When the spectre appears, it gains temporary hit points equal to half of your Warlock level. Roll initiative for the spectre, which has its own turns. It obeys your verbal commands, and it gains a special bonus to its attack rolls equal to your charisma modifier. The spectre remains in your service until the end of your next long rest, at which point it vanishes in the afterlife. Once you bind a spectre with this feature, you cannot use the feature again until you finish a long rest. This fits thematically because Mordekaiser had all the souls waiting for him in the afterlife, and he bound them to his service or used them as Lego building blocks. At level 11, we're Warlock level 7, and we get 4th level spells, and another Eldritch Invocation. For our Invocation choice, you could take multiple things, but I'm going to be grabbing Improved Pack Weapon here, which lets us use our Pack Weapon as a spellcasting focus, and we also get a +1 to attack and damage rolls with the weapon, bringing it to a 9 to hit, and a +5 to damage. And if you use Great Weapon Master, this now takes us down to a +4 to hit, and gives you 15 more damage. For 5th level spells, you can make an argument for Blight or Dimension Door, but there's nothing really here that I'm going to grab, so pick your favorites. And at this level, our Eldritch Blast also fires 3 beams now. At level 12, we're Warlock level 8, and we get an ability score improvement. We're capping out our charisma to 20, making Nightfall and our spells hit as hard as they can. Nightfall now has a 10 to hit and a +6 to damage without Great Weapon Master added to it. And our Eldritch Blast fires 3 beams, which now hit for 1d10 +5 for each beam. At level 13, we're Warlock level 9, and we get another Invocation and 5th level spells. First, for our Invocation, pick your favorite. However, one I will mention is Eldritch Smite, which once per turn when you hit a creature with a pack weapon, you can expend a Warlock spell slot to deal an extra 1d8 force damage to your target, plus another 1d8 per level of the spell slot you use, and you can knock the target prone if it is huge or smaller. For us, our spell slots are currently 5th level, so if you're confident that you can maintain concentration on your Spirit Shroud, you can burn a spell slot letting you deal an additional 6d8 on that turn. Just beware, you only have 2 spell slots total, so once you cast Spirit Shroud, you only have 1 left, so make that decision wisely. I will be picking up this for this build. However, you can choose whatever else you want here instead. For 5th level spells we get here, again, nothing really jumps out to me, so pick up your favorites. At level 14, we're Warlock level 10, and we get Armor of Hexes here, which says, starting at level 10, your Hex grows more powerful. If the target cursed by your Hexblade's curse hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to roll a d6, and on a roll of 4 or higher, the attack misses you instead, regardless of your roll. Now, this will be used again if the shield spell won't bring your AC high enough to negate the attack. It's more of a gamble, but also doesn't cost a spell slot and only takes a reaction. At level 15, we're Warlock level 11, and we get the Mystic Arcanum feature, which allows us to take a 6th level spell slot from the Warlock spell list. We can cast a spell once without expending a spell slot, and must finish a long rest before we can do so again. You can take many things, but for us, I'm going to get Soul Cage, which, with a reaction, lets us snatch a soul of a humanoid as it dies and traps it within a tiny cage. The stolen soul remains in the cage until the spell ends. The spell's duration of 8 hours until you destroy the cage, which will end the spell, or if you exploit the soul 6 times in the following ways. You can steal life from the soul using a bonus action to gain 2d8 hit points. You can ask the soul a question and receive a brief telepathic answer. It only knows what it did in life, but must answer truthfully. However, it cannot be more than a sentence or 2, and it might be cryptic. You can borrow experience from it using a bonus action to bolster yourself with a soul's life experience, making your next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw with advantage as long as it is made before the start of your next turn. If you don't use it, then this benefit is lost. Or finally, you can borrow the Eyes of the Dead using an action to name a place the humanoid saw in life, which creates an invisible sensor in that location if it's on the same plane of existence you're currently on. The sensor remains as long as you're concentrated, up to 10 minutes. You receive visual and auditory information from it as if you were in its space using your senses. A creature that can see the sensor, such as one using See Invisibly or True Sight, sees a translucent image of the tormented humanoid soul you caged. Exploding the soul 6 times in the following ways releases the soul from the cage, but while the soul is within the cage, the dead humanoid it came from cannot be revived. Pretty dark, but I think this fits his thematic well and gives you some added utility and healing in combat. At level 16, we're now a level 12 Warlock, and we get another Invocation and ability score improvement. First, we'll apply our ability score improvement, and you could do a number of things here, but I'm above our Constitution here, making us a bit tankier. For our Invocation, we're going to grab Life Drinker, which says when you hit a creature with our pack weapon, the creature takes extra necrotic damage equal to your charisma modifier, and this doesn't have a limit of once per turn or any stipulation, so we can apply this to each hit with Nightfall. I'm going to save our new damage overview until level 20, but just know that with everything we mentioned here, your Nightfall now deals 2d6 plus 6 on a hit without Great Weapon Master, plus 5 for the curse now, 1d6 for Giant Smite, and the 5 extra damage on each hit with Nightfall thanks to Life Drinker Invocation we just got, for a total of plus 20 with 4 hits. At level 17, or Warlock level 13, we get 7th level Mystic Arcanum, which, as the previous one did, lets us choose a spell and cast it without expending a slow slot. To do so again, we need to finish a long rest, but for our 7th level option, we're going to grab Force Cage, which is basically going to function as Mordekaiser's ultimate ability from League of Legends. Force Cage says, using your action in a mobile, invisible, cube-shaped prison composed of magical force springs into existence around an area you choose within range. The prison can be a cage or a solid box, as you choose. A prison in the shape of a cage can be 20 feet on a side and is made from half-inch diameter bars spaced half-inch apart. A prison in the shape of a box can be up to 10 feet on a side, creating a solid barrier that prevents any matter from passing through it and blocking any spells cast into or out from the area. When you cast a spell, any creature that is completely inside the cage is trapped. Creatures only partially within the area or those too large to fit inside the area are pushed away from the center of the area until they are completely outside the area. A creature inside the cage cannot leave it by non-magical means. If the creature tries to use teleportation or airplane travel to leave the cage, it must first make a charisma saving throw. On a success, the creature can use that magic to exit the cage. On a failure, the creature can't exit the cage and wastes the use of that spell or effect. The cage also extends into the ethereal plane, blocking ethereal travel. This spell can't be dispelled by dispel magic as well. This fits Mordekaiser so well, so now you can have a duel with one person of your choice, and they cannot escape unless they use magic, and even then they have to roll to see if they can escape from you. And the cage also extends into the ethereal realm, which means ghosts and other things can't travel that way to get out of it either. Your Eldritch Blast at this level also gains the ability to fire 4 beams instead of 3. But moving on to level 18, we are Warlock level 14, and we get Master of Hexes, which says, you can spread your curse from a slain creature to another creature. When the creature cursed by your Hexblade's curse dies, you can apply the curse to a different creature you can see within 30 feet of you, provided you are incapacitated. However, if you reapply the curse in this way, you don't regain hit points from the death of the previously cursed creature. Now, it is much easier to maintain the damage as you won't always need the healing the curse provides, so you can keep transitioning the curse to new targets if that is the case. At level 19, we are Warlock level 15, and we obtain our final evocation of Mystic Arcanum for 8th level spells. For our invocation, we can pick up Eldritch Mind, which gives us the advantage on Constitution saving throws we make to maintain concentration on a spell, helping us keep up our Spirit Shroud. And for our 8th level spell, feel free to pick up whatever you like here. Most of them are amazingly fun spells, but don't fit our thematic. Demiplane is close, so I'll be grabbing that one. Finally, at level 20, we're at Warlock level 16, and we get our final ability score improvement. And again, you can take many things here, but I'm going to polish the build off with a feat and take the tough feat here, giving us 40 extra hit points at this level. Now, at level 20, what do I think of this build? I personally love it, and will probably end up using this build in some way when my current character dies. You have so much damage, and as promised, allow me to tell you how much damage you can deal. So with all of our setup finished, and again, assuming the best case scenario, our Night Foundale deals 2d6 plus 6 without the help of Great Weapon Master, but with it, it deals 2d6 plus 16. On each hit, it makes a possible 28 damage per hit with Nightfall. We then add 6 damage to each damage roll thanks to our Hexblade's Curse, and with Spirit Shroud active at this level, now deals 2d8 of the chosen damage instead of 1d8 per hit, which gives us 200 damage and we make a total of 4 swings. But now we also get to add our 1d6 per turn thanks to Giant's Might, and with the Life Drinker Invocation, we can add 5 more damage per hit we make with Nightfall, for a total of 20 if we make 4 attacks. So that adds up to a possible damage of 226 on one turn if I'm doing all my math right. You hit really hard. You're an incredible duelist who can choose a target in particular and really ruin their day, then move on to the next unfortunate soul. You're tanky with a 17 AC with about 208 hit points, but if you're able to get plate mail on your journey, you'll be sitting at a 19 AC with 208 hit points at level 20. Just imagine a hulking suit of iron like Mordekaiser in real life with a swirling aura of undead around him, walking menacingly at you with heavy clanking thudding sounds moving towards you. You look up at this titan-wielding Nightfall. You try to run but slam face first into an abyssal barrier. You're cornered, caged like an animal, and Mordekaiser laughs before you meet your demise. I hope you all enjoy the build. Mordekaiser is one of my favorite champions, so I poured a lot of love into this one. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and a small reminder that if you did, be sure to like the video and leave me a comment because I'm making more of these. Have a good day, everybody.